All right, so we will be starting. Welcome to the Android Fundamentals Speed Training. I am, for those who don't know me, I am Roy. I am a Java instructor for Coding Nomads, and I am a senior software engineer. I've been working in some companies for a few years. So why we learn Android? Well, mainly it's almost the whole market, the mobile market is controlled by Android. 88% of the mobile operative systems are Android. Everyone is going mobile first. That means that the companies are building first their applications instead of their webs. There are more than 2 billion monthly active users. That's almost 1/3 of the planet. And it's easy to learn. It has a huge community that helps with problems and building it. This is one of the topics that we are giving in our course at Coding Nomads, in the Java course. And some of the people who did the course are they ended up in the startups as a junior developers or taking more technical roles in their current careers. Those are some of the companies that some of students that studied at Coding Nomads are working now. By the way, we have an upcoming course to Bali. I will be the teacher for the Java course. The enrollment deadline ends soon, next week. So if you want to sign up, so you will learn more Java and of course more Android, just send an email to Kim at this email. It's gonna be nice and fun. Okay, so we will talk about, in this speed training, about Android a little bit, the tools that we are going to use. We'll do a Hello World application, and we will build into this Hello World application later our application, the Tic-Tac-Toe. So we will show the structure of the project, and then we will explain the Tic-Tac-Toe rules that everyone knows, but just for, it's good in programming that you have clear the rules that you have to program. And then we will start coding the application. Okay, yeah, Android is a mobile operating system created by Android Inc. In 2005, and then was bought by Google, and still develops it. At that time, iOS was as well starting, and Symbian was the main operative system for mobiles. It's based on Java. Android is based on the Linux kernel, and it has other open source software. Google still releases the source code of Android after they are improving it. You can download it in Android's open source project. I will share the slides later, so you can download, you can click on the links later when you have the slides. As I said before, like now, Android holds 88% of the market of the mobile operative systems. Okay, the tools that we are going to use is Android Studio. It's an IDE created by JetBrains, and it's based on IntelliJ. Google took it and improved it a bit to serve better Android. It added some features like log tools to check what's going on in mobile, creating emulators to run your applications in your computer without a physical device, and some other tools like to check the state of the mobile, and helping create the front end, translations, and so on. Android supports 2 languages, Java and Kotlin. Kotlin is a new one created by JetBrains as well, but we are going to use Java. Okay, hands-on. Let's start creating a Hello World application. For that, you will download the Android Studio from the Google webpage. And once it's created, you will start it. You will see on a screen like this. Let's start creating a new Android Studio project. Okay, here is the name of the application. We are doing a Hello World, but I'm gonna call it my Tic-Tac-Toe. So we are gonna reuse this project later to improve it and convert it into a Tic-Tac-Toe. By default, if we create a project, it's gonna show Hello World in the screen. So that's why I call it Hello World. My Tic-Tac-Toe. So here you can just put your name, the name of the company, or whatever. This is going to be used to be called inside Java, the name of the package. Here is where it's going to be. You don't need to do anything else. So next. Then here you can select what kind of platform do you want to develop, like for phone, tablets, for mobile, for watches, for TVs, for Android Auto, for things. So we are just gonna develop for phone. Here you can select the API, so the level of the operative system that will have the mobile phone. So we are gonna select an old one. So this way it's gonna run in 99.6% of the devices that exist. So we want a lot of compatibility. That's why we are picking an old API. And here we can have a template for our application. So we don't want anything fancy. We just want one screen application. So let's go for an empty activity. Activity is what they call a screen. Okay. Since this is going to be the main activity, but we are going to have a game, a tic-tac-toe. So let's call it game activity. Okay. If we click finish, now it's gonna create the files needed for the project. And since our project is a Gradle project, it's gonna start running the Gradle scripts. Don't worry, Gradle is just a tool to build the application itself. So it has some definitions on how to build it, some instructions. You don't need to worry. We are not gonna touch anything of Gradle during this tutorial. The default configuration is good enough to create our application. So it's gonna take a little while. Okay, so we can start creating our emulator. We are gonna create this application. We are gonna build it, and then we are gonna deploy it into a phone. What kind of phone? A virtual device. So in here, in this small button, we can click, and it's gonna show the virtual devices. Whoops, sorry, still loading the application. Okay, let's let it finish. As you can see here in the button is working. Now it went. Okay. Seems like it finished. So if we click again here, we see the virtual devices. Okay, the screen that I clicked was this small one with the purple icon. So here, for example, I have one device, but I will create a new one so you can see how it's done. So it's gonna be a phone. It's gonna be, for example, a Pixel 2. Most of the devices have similar parameters, and excluding the old devices, if we are developing, creating the interface, the UI for one of the phones that are new, it's gonna work in all of the devices. So we don't have to design a lot of different layouts for the UI. The main difference, like if we want to program more than one, would be tablet and phone. So, well, that's what if we are for TV and wearables, but since our application is going to work only in phones and tablets, we will have to do two UIs. But right now we are only developing for phones. So let's pick just a phone that is good enough. Let's say a Pixel 2. So now here we have the available recommended system images. So this is the an image that contains Android installed for our device. So we are going to use the latest one, Android 9. I already have it downloaded. It's not, you just have to click on download here, and it's going to show another screen that you have to click on next, 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 and it will be downloaded. After that, you just click on here and select next. This is the operative system that our device, our virtual device is going to have. And here's the name. We just leave everything default. Here you can change some configuration, but we don't want to. So these small steps were just to create a virtual device. So you don't need to really worry about that. You just create one, as I did, like select Pixel 2, next, next, next. Okay. So now that we have one device, we can boot it up, for example, on the bottom plate. Here we can see the device. We can close the other screen. And now it's gonna boot up. Okay, so while it's booting, we can build our application. So I didn't do anything in the screen. I just opened this default Java file and built by itself the Gradle configuration. Let's just click on Start, this small arrow, green arrow. And we are gonna say that we want it to be in the Pixel 2. Let's check if it's booted. It's still booting. So, okay. While it's booting, we are gonna have, after it's boot and the application is run, something like this, an empty screen with hello world on it. This is the default project that is coming with a default empty project in Android. Okay, it looks like it's booted. So let's pick this device to run our application. Again, I did it in here, this small arrow. So this device, double click. And now it's Gradle is building. It's creating the package, the APK. That this is the file that is where all the files that are needed for the application are put and built into that. And then it's copying this file into the emulator, and then it's running that, installing that file as an application and running it in the emulator. Okay. It shouldn't be much time, but looks like it's taking a few seconds. So yeah, let's continue explaining something. It's finished. Okay, installing APK. So it's installing, and now it's gonna run. We're gonna see how the application is launched, and we will see the hello world as we had in here. Hello world. Okay, yeah, here we have it. So we have our application installed in our virtual device, and we have a hello world. We can navigate. This is a normal phone, so we can navigate, and we will see our application. It's gonna be here, Tic-Tac-Toe, so you can open it. Okay, easy, hello world. Every programmer has to do a hello world first. Okay, so I'm gonna explain really briefly the project structure. I don't really need you to understand it right now. Like just to create this application, you don't really need that. But I will explain it so you will know if you have a curiosity and then you want to research online by yourself about what is in every part of the project. So, oops. The project structure contains these files. You can see I created here, so you can see the same files here: manifest, Java, and resources. We as well have this one, generated Java, but I will say something later about that. Okay. So manifest, Java code, resources, and Gradle scripts. As well, the Gradle scripts are in here. Okay. So the manifest is just a file that has the definition of the application, like what kind of components has, like the screens, the services, and other stuff that will work with application. What permissions has or needs the application in order to run well. Which kind of hardware and software features needs to use. You can see more about this file in here. I'm gonna explain very briefly because, as I said, like we will focus on coding. Here is the source code. So in the Java, we have like the actual code of the program that we're gonna have. Then we have two testing folders, one for Android tests and then another for unit testing. We are not gonna do tests during this presentation. So then there is the folder resources. The folder resources has a few important ones that come created, and then another folders that you can create that we'll use. It's gonna be mainly for images, the icons, definitions of the screens in XMLs, some strings for translations, styles, and colors. And this other folder, generated Java, is a folder that is auto-generated by Java, created by the Android Studio when you make the build, extracting some parts of the source code and the resources, and creating some intermediate parts, some that are built into one file that is called R, that is gonna make the job easier for them. So you don't really need to know how it works, but you need to know that this folder you don't need to touch. Java is creating it. So then there are the Gradle scripts that are some scripts that we are not touching, and it's just to build the project, the modules, defining some properties, the binaries the binaries of the Gradle itself, and so on. You don't need to worry about it as well. Okay, so let's start. First, the rules. So everyone knows how to play tic-tac-toe. There is a game played in a 3x3 grid. There are two players represented by an X and an O. And when a player gets 3 of his marks in a row, wins the game, and the game is over. So for example, it can be these 3 in diagonal. So here, the player with the mark O won. When all the 9 squares are full and the game is over, when the 9 squares are full, the game is over and ends in a tie if there are no 3 in a row. So there is as well another scenario that none of them won, but there are all the squares covered. It's really important that we write down these rules, because these are what we are designing our program for, what we have to achieve with our program. Okay, so now let's start coding. First, we will create just a screen, a graphical screen with the grid that we need with different colors. Those are buttons. We will create a button here that says start. So for that, and as well, when a user clicks on any of the buttons, it will mark with an X, similar to here, X, but we are just putting an X. So yeah, let's start. Here, in the resources folder, there is a layout folder and an XML. You can see here it contains the actual view of how it looks, the application. So it's a screen. This is the activity game screen. Activity, again, is a screen. So let's just refer to it as activity. The activity game contains this layout. The layout is how it looks. At the moment, it's only looking like a text, hello world. You can see it again in our emulator, hello world. This hello world comes from, here we have 2 views of this part of the layout view, let's say. The design, so we can drag and drop elements and so on, and the text. The text is where we see what is actually there in code. This is XML. We have a preview here as well. So the hello world is the text that comes from here. So if we put another thing here, it will change. Hello, I will be tic-tac-toe. So if we click on the lining, this is like an instant run. It will create fast the application and deploy it into the emulator. We will see our changes in our new application. It will close and reopen the new application. Hello, I will be tic-tac-toe. Okay, fair enough. How does it work with Java? We have the Java class game activity, the only class that we have in our Java code, that is an activity, an application activity, that has one method, onCreate. This method is run when we create the application. You can check online about the Android lifecycle, the activity lifecycle, that says when the methods are used. So there are different methods that are normally used when an screen, an activity is coming. So onCreate, onStart, onResume, and many others. You can search for that online. It's Android activity lifecycle. Okay. So right now, this is the method that is created when we start activity. And it only does one thing, set the content view. What does it mean? It will set as the view, what we see, the activity game layout. So this one. It comes from r.layout.activitygame. As I told you before, R is the auto-generated files that Android creates for you when you compile. So it makes some references for easy access, let's say, and performance. So if we want to refer to this activity, we need to use air.layout to this activity layout. We need to use air.layout.activity game. This is done by default, so every activity has to have a view, and every view of Android. Okay, so we can start by creating the layout. So how it looks, we will remove the text view. We don't need it at the moment. We will create the grid. So the grid is gonna be this part. The grid is the container, and we contain 9 buttons in 1, 2, 3 rows. Okay, so we are going to the design. Let's make it easy. We are just going to legacy and pick the grid layout. So we are picking it and dragging it inside. So now it says that it requires a library. So if you want to install, just say OK, and it's going to install the. It's installing the library. You can see here in the bottom, it's running, and we will be able to use it now. Okay. So if we come back to text, we can see now the layout. So in the layout, we will set up the dimensions to, instead of pixels, well, there are no pixels here. There are density pixels, let's say, that it says how big it should be in density proportions. Why is density and not pixels? Because in a 5 inches screen, it can be a resolution of 180p, 720p, or even 4K. There are phones that are 4K. But we don't want to program different resolutions. So Android gives us this really smart system that is density of pixels. So it's gonna know automatically according to the pixels of the screen where to put it relatively. It's just like more like a like you will know the application will know exactly where to put it in every screen size, so you don't need to worry about it. So we don't want as well this specific number. We just want to wrap content. What does it mean? It will have, we want it for width and for weight. Wrap content. Whatever content it has, it will be as big as its content. So at the moment it doesn't have content, so it's 0. Okay. We don't need those 2 things. What do we need? We need an ID. For example, it's always good to have an ID. We are gonna, I just click in enter. It's auto-completed when I'm writing. Grid layout. So we have it identified. We want to as well say the column count. I just started typing, it appears, and I click enter. And we want to have 3 columns. 1, 2, 3, another 3. Okay. So as well, inside here, inside the grid layout, this is the starting tag and this is the finish tag. So inside, we want to create 9 buttons. So we come back to the design mode. We go to buttons, we pick a button, and we put it somewhere inside. It's not inside, so let's put it inside. Yeah, so now you can see it's inside. And okay, we're gonna rename this button. We're gonna call it something like B start, like button start. No, sorry. We're gonna have some buttons inside. So this is gonna be something like button top left. It's gonna be once the size is gonna be 100 dp. These are just some dimensions that I know more or less they are good for this purpose. And the text of the button is going to be empty. We don't want those things. And since we have to create 9 buttons, we don't want to specify everything different in this button. So we will use this tool that Android provides for us called styles. So we want to create the style of a button, so we can just use the style of the button in the button. So we don't need to copy it 9 times. So to create a style, it's easy. We just have to say style, the name of the style. Let's call it button. And we can close. So now we can put things inside. The things are called items. For example, the width. And the width is going to be 100 dp. Actually, we are putting it in here instead of the button. And then with Command D, I duplicate the line. Instead of command width, we will put as well height. We will put as well some nice stuff for the text, so it's gonna look good. So the family font, the text style, bold to be big, and the size, that's gonna make it quite big. Yeah. So that's gonna be our button. But we're gonna have 2 buttons, like dark buttons and light buttons. So we could copy and paste this 2 times, but this is programming, so don't repeat yourself. Let's use the inheritance of the styles. So we want to create another style. Let's call it button dark, whose parent is gonna be button. What does it mean? That it's gonna inherit all the properties that are in the other style, but it's gonna add as well the properties that are in here. So in here, we just want to select the color. So we are going to put the background to some kind of a dark gray. So let's say 6 bits. This is an hexadecimal. As you can see, when I finish typing here, it just appears this square. So this is the final color that is gonna be in the bottom. It's quite nice. Android Studio does it. So we are gonna create the bottom light. Inherits as well from bottom, and we're gonna have like a lighter gray. So E5, E5, E5. So you cannot really see it, but it's a bit lighter, and it's gonna make a lot of difference when they are next to each other. So we come back to the activity game, the layout. So we don't need to set the dimensions anymore. We only need, actually, we only need to have the ID and the style. So style, and the style is gonna be the style, not button, but first one is gonna be dark, button dark. And we are gonna put 9 times this. Left, center, right. Good. So we have our grid. As well, we want to put the start button. So let's create the start button outside the grid. We only created the buttons, but we don't have any functionality attached to it. So we come back to the design. We pick a new button and we put it here, for example. And as well, we will advance like this text, so it's gonna be easier for later. So the text, we are gonna pick a text view in here. Here is where we are going to put the result from the match. So if we win, if we lose, or so on. Okay, so we come back to text and we give some IDs. So this is gonna be the button start, and this is gonna be the TextView game result. Okay. We don't want this. We don't want this. This is for the layout, this thing. So how we see in here, but not in the actual application when it's run. So we want to give some properties, for example, in the text. Instead of the text, actual text that is going to be displayed, we want to just give some text to display when we are seeing it in here in the preview, not in the application. So we select tool, tools. Sorry. So in the tools, for example, I will put viewing. Okay. And we are gonna make the text a bit bigger because at the moment you cannot really see. Well, let's put it back here and then we will really, so you can see now better. So the text is viewing, but we are gonna put a better size. Let's say text size 30 SP. SP is another density size for fonts. So here viewing is better. Okay, now we are gonna put the how it will look. We are gonna center. We're gonna position it. So this is a constrained layout. Constrained layout, it has constraint points. So for example, this grid layout has 4 constraints. So we are gonna constrain it to the right and to the left. So automatically it fixes to the middle. We are gonna fix this to the top and to the text. And then we are gonna fix the text to the bottom. And then we are gonna fix the bottom to the bottom. Oops, it didn't fix here. Yeah, now. And we need to fix horizontally this as well. Okay, so do it with this constraint layout. Okay, so I think this looks okay, acceptable. We can see the design, button, text, and the grid. So let's launch it, and we can see it in the emulator. Good. So we don't have any text. That's good because the text is only with tools. So this means it's only for the preview. So it's not going to be visible, this viewing. And we have buttons that we cannot do anything with them. Okay, so we have our layout created. Let's go now with the game activity. Let's give functionality to these buttons. So in order to use the buttons and to add functionality to them, we need to somehow retrieve them and put them into variables. Let's create a method initialize UI. Let's call this method in here in the onCreate. So in the if I use any shortcut, for example, I here use Control space to autocomplete. As well, you can see it in this small presentation plugin. Okay, but I will try to tell them out loud. So we initialize the UI. In the UI, let's, for example, get a reference to the text view. So the game result text view. I will maybe split size for you. No, I will. You can just see it here. So the text view here is this text view. That is text view game result. Okay. So let's pick this text view and put it into a variable. So for that, instead of creating a text view, we are using a method that Android provides us to find this text view in these auto-generated files. So find by view by ID, and then we give the ID that Android assigned to this layout that he created. ID dot TV game result. You don't really need to understand how this works. You just need to understand that this way, using this method, you can put here the same name as is in the layout, TV game result, the ID, and then you will have access to this text view in a variable. Let's make it a field. We will use the shortcut Alt Command F, and then hit Enter. So now it declared the variable as a field in here, and then we initialize it in here. Okay, so now we have access to this game result. So we can put some text there if we want. At the moment, we don't want to put any text. Let's continue. So we will initialize as well. Initialize the buttons. So initialize buttons. Let's make a method. So Alt Enter in here will suggest what actions can we do. We can do. Then it's suggesting create method. We hit Enter and it creates automatically the method. Enter, and we are inside. So here we will create a list of buttons. There are two ways of solving actually this problem. You could make an array, for example, an array of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So a two-dimensional array of 3 by 3. Or how I will solve it, because it's gonna be easier later, it's gonna be with a list. So we are gonna have a list like this. What does it mean, the numbers? The numbers of the buttons in the grid. So I decided by myself that a list would be an easier representation for later check for winners and so on. So let's go for this approach. For that, we will create a new list, a list of buttons. Buttons, for example. With Alt Enter, I'm using this suggestion that is going to import util list. Alt Enter. Okay. So now it imported the list here. It added this line, so we can use this interface. And then new array list, Enter. So we are creating an empty array list of buttons. So let's add the buttons. Buttons.add, and then we need to add a button. So we will find view by ID, as we did before for the text, r.id dot button top right. Okay, it's not working. Why it's not working? Because it found a view instead of a button. So we need to cast it. If you see the class button, command click on button, you see that extends TextView. If we command click TextView, we see that TextView extends view. What does it mean, all of this? That a button is a view. So we need to cast it. If you want to learn more about Java and how the inheritance and all this works, don't have to come to the course. Okay, so this is going to be a button. So now he knows that what find view by ID is going to return is going to be a button, so we can add it to the list. Okay, so let's do with command D duplication of this line, and we want to do it 9 times. So, right. Okay. Left, center, right. Okay. So we have access now to the buttons in the Java code, but we didn't do anything with that. So we will use this access to be able to attach actions to those buttons. Let's create a method. Let's call it add button actions. Buttons actions. So add enter, create method, enter, created the method, and now we will iterate through all the buttons list, iter. By default, the ID is creating this, oops, not this, but we want to put here buttons. Okay, it's not detecting buttons because buttons is not visible in this method. We need to do buttons as a field. Alt Command F and enter. So now buttons is a field. You can see that it changed the color. So now we can access it here. If we do iter, it's now detecting that there is an array list, so it's gonna use it. Buttons, button. This means for every button, it's gonna be put into this variable. So for every iteration of the loop, we will have button available in here. So to this button, we will add, we will set an onClickListener. This is a listener that will be seeing or listening actually to the button. So when anyone clicks, and by click is a tap because it's a touch screen, when anyone clicks on it, it's going to execute the action that we are going to give. So we create a new onClickListener, this one. This is an interface, so we need to implement it. If we hit enter, it's going to create an anonymous class of the interface onClickListener. It's a simple interface that it has only one method, onClick, that accepts a view, and we can do something with this view. The view is the button itself that was pressed. Okay, so we need to actually transform this view into a button. So button, clicked button equals v, and we need to cast it into a button. Perfect. So now we have access to the clicked button, and we can set text. What do we want to put? The text that we wanted. We want to mark with an X when the user inputs. So we put that X as a string, and since this is not a good practice, we will create a constant with this X. Alt Command C, and then we give the name to the constant. Let's call it player symbol. So it's gonna put the text of this player symbol. So in this method, that is executed in here, we are going through all the buttons that we created and we put in the array, and we are adding a functionality that the action that when it's clicked, we change the text to add the player symbol, and the player symbol is an X. Easy. Let's execute. And we can see the emulator. Let's bring it up. Here we have. So we have our board, and when we click, we can put X. We can put all the X we want until it's full, because every time we click, it's gonna replace the text with an X. So replacing an X with an X, that's nothing. So let's go with we did the first part. Let's go with the second part. Coding the game. We actually will try to make the game do something. It will detect if there are 3 in a row. We will, to detect if there are 3 in a row, there are only 8 possible scenarios in this game. So 3 in a row in horizontal, 1, 2, and 3. 3 in a row in vertical, 1, 2, and 3, and 2 in diagonal, 1 and 2. So those are the 8 possible scenarios that someone will win. So we need to detect those scenarios. We will not detect them in the buttons because it's not a good practice to use the UI to do logical calculations of the game. So we will abstract the logical calculations and all the logical decisions to another class, the class board. And we will have to add the functionalities to this board to mark, to erase, to check if there is a win. As well, we will add some kind of list with the possible scenarios. And if the player wins, we will set the text "you win," and we will have the possibility to restart the game. So we will give functionality to this button. So we will still not play against anyone, but at least we will detect if there is 3 in a row in the actual board. Okay, so for that, in the game activity, we'll have to create a board. Well, we can start first by creating some functionality to this button, that this button will restart and empty the UI. This button, actually, we will rename it to start. And since it's not a good practice to hard code text, we will put it into a string. With Alt-Enter, it suggests us to extract the string resource. If we click, it asks for the name of the resource and the value. So by default, start, that's good. It's going to put it into the Strings.xml file. Let's click OK. And now, as we see, it has a reference at string start. So if we go to value, so with the name of the string start and with the content start. Why do we have all the strings, all the text not hard-coded, but into a single file? Because Android provides an editor that you can add more languages, and then you will be able to add a simple translation here. So you don't need a programmer to add the translation. Just reads the value and adds the translation. And then we will have a fully translated application if we use this system. So that's why it's a good practice. Okay, we come back to the activity. So we will give functionality to this button. So we go to the game activity, where our code is, our only Java file yet. And we will use, first we will find the button as we did with the other things. So in the UI, we will find another button. Let's put it into a method, initialize start button. Oops. And then we will create, Alt-Enter, create method. We need to find the start button. So button, start button equals find view by ID, r.id, be start. So we are creating this button. We are making it a field, Alt Command F, enter. And then we can actually give functionality. We will do the same way, start button dot set onClickListener, the same way that we did in here with the actions for the buttons of the grid. So new view dot onClickListener, and the functionality that we want to do is just clean buttons, actually. So we'll create this method. We'll create it in the game activity. Enter. If not, it will be inside here, and we don't want it there. It's better to not mix the methods in the anonymous classes. So the clean buttons is going to iterate through all the buttons, and it's just going to set the text of those buttons to empty. Okay. So I think that's done. Let's try it. So it's going to run. Now we can set as many as we want, and then this should erase. Yeah. So we have some functionality done. Okay. Let's keep going. Let's create the board. So for example, let's create it in here. Board equals new board. So let's create this class, Alt, Enter, create class. It's gonna create the class, Enter, Enter. And then in this class, we will have a list, the list that I was speaking about before, this list with the marks. So the list with the mark for the position 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So this is going to be a private list of strings and Alt Enter. Yeah, let's call it marks equals new array list. And then we are going to initialize it with empty values. So Alt Enter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So we have the marks. And then we are going to give the functionality to be able to mark the board. So let's create a function, public void mark, that is going to set an integer with the position that we want to mark and the symbol that we want to mark. Okay, the symbol is going to be the player. At the moment, we only have one player, but it's going to be better for later when we want to add the artificial intelligence. So it's just going to be marks.set position symbol. This will put in the array list into that position the symbol. The list has a couple of methods, set and add. So set replaces add, adds. So at the moment, we only want to have a list with 9. That's why we are using set to replace the content of one of them. Okay, then we want to detect if there is a win. So for that, we are gonna do the strategy of creating the possible wins and add them to a list. So for that, we are gonna create another class that is going to be called possible win. It's gonna have only the positions that is gonna be a win. For example, 3 numbers. 0, 1, 2 is gonna be a win. 3, 4, 5 is another win. 6, 7, 8 is another win. 0, 3, 6, 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8, 0, 4, 8, 6, 4, 2. Okay, I can make it bigger as well. So 8 possibilities, as we were speaking. Possible win. That's a class. Possible wins equals new array list empty. So we need to create this class, and this class is gonna be Alt Enter, Enter. It's gonna be a pretty simple class. It's gonna contain only private int first, 3 numbers, second and third, second and third. Now we need to create a constructor, command N, to suggest what we want to do, generate the constructor. We select the 3 of them, enter. So we have a constructor with the 3 values assigned. And now command N, we want to create the getters for the 3 values. Select 3 of them, enter. Okay, that's a simple thing. Actually, yeah, it's quite simple. We don't need anything more. So we need now to populate this array of possible wins. So let's, yeah, actually, it's already 1 hour, but it's taking a little bit more than expected, but we are gonna finish the app. So we will just continue. We only need to do the marking the board, then we will do, I will do a quick pick, So we'll do the AI. It's going to be a random AI, and then we are going to improve it to use an algorithm that I will not explain the algorithm. I will just copy paste it and use it. So it's going to be a bit more wild. Okay. So now let's continue. We are going to create the constructor of this class, the board, that is going to initialize the possible wins with all the possible wins. So we create the constructor, We select none, okay, and inside the constructor, we are gonna add to the possible wins a new possible win that is gonna contain the three numbers that makes a win, 0, 1, 2, for example. So there are 3 horizontal, then it's gonna be another 3 vertical, and then it's gonna be another 2 in diagonal. So I'm just gonna type fast the numbers 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 0, 4, 8, and 2, 4, 6. Okay, those are all the possible wins combinations that the tic-tac-toe allows. So let's make a method that will check if there is a winner. So public boolean is going to return yes or no if there is a winner. Is there winner? Or is let's call it has won, for example. We are gonna put as a parameter the player symbol. Actually, we are gonna put the player symbol into another class. Let's call it player. That is gonna allow us to later put more stuff that belongs to the player inside. For example, the color and so. So let's create this class player, and the player at the moment is just gonna have a private string symbol. So let's create a constructor with symbol, okay. And the getter. Let's create the getter for the symbol. Okay. This is using the same as before, command N for generating, and then you can select what is in there. Okay, so let's iterate through the possible wins. And now we're gonna check if are the same the actual possible win with the player.get symbol. If in the possible win all the 3 positions contains the same symbol of the player, then returns true. So this if is returning true. If not, return false. So if any of the possible wins contains in the 3 positions the same symbol that we provide, the player symbol, let's say an X, then it means that it won. So if any of these 3 positions is detected, I mean any of the possible wins is detected, it returns true. If not, it's false. Okay, so let's create this method. Player symbol. Okay, so now we need to return, we need to evaluate if all of the possible win contains the player symbol, then returns true because are the same, then it means that he won. So for that, we need to use marks.get. So in the list that we are storing the actual player moves, we need to get all the positions. So possible win.get first. Oops. If this get first equals, oops, equals the player symbol, and as well, and as well, is the second and the third one, I can maybe, copy here. So get second, get third. You can reformat with Command Alt L. That's why it's all the code move. So if all of them are the same, then it means that the player won. So this will return true. And we can do as well another method to erase the board. Void erase. As well as we have the erase the UI, we can erase the whole board. Okay, this erase is just gonna actually do this. Reset the array to empty values. Okay, I think we have our board right now. And we can use it in our game activity. So we were creating it here. So let's make a field of that. Command Alt F and oops. Board, enter. So now every time we click the button here, we actually need to as well mark it in the board. So let's do board.mark the position of the button. We need to find the position. So in order to find the position, we have access to the buttons. And we can say index of the clicked button. This will return the position in the array, list, sorry. So it's gonna mark the position of the button. And the button is this one, is gonna be 0, 1, 2, and so on. And it's gonna put the player symbol. Okay. As well, we want to do something else with the button. For example, if we click a button, we want to as well don't allow the user to click it again. So let's say that he cannot click. Set clickable false. Okay. After marking all of that, we need to detect if there is a winner. So board dot has won the player. So let's create a player with this symbol. Let's create the player up here, for example, private player equals new player with the player symbol. Okay, so now we can, instead of user the player symbol, we can use player dot get symbol here and here, and here we can pass the player. Okay, if there is a winner, if the player won, then we need to set the text in the game result text view. It's gonna be you won or you win. As you can see, it suggests us that we need to create a string from that. So let's go ahead and add enter. Extract a string to resource, and let's call it you win. And then it's automatically using the method get string with the string ID you win in order to get the string. It's quite nice. So he added as well in the strings you win. Okay, and now as well we can disable buttons. So we need to as well disable all the other buttons so the user cannot keep playing clicking other buttons. So let's create this method in the game activity. Okay, so the disable buttons is gonna be iterate through all the buttons, and it's gonna be for every button set clickable false. Okay, let's test it out. Well, actually, we can as well in the restart. We need to restart the board. Erase. We need to restart the text that we just set text to empty, and we need to enable the buttons. Enable the buttons that we just disabled when someone won. So let's create this method in game activity. Let's put all the methods of the buttons together in the bottom. So it's gonna be something similar as the other one. For every buttons set clickable. True. Okay. Now let's test it. Here it is. Okay, so it should detect. Yeah, you win. And we cannot put anything else. That's nice. Let's start again. Let's put random ones. Oh, you win. Let's try another one. For example, diagonal, you win. So yeah, looks like it's working. Good. So we are able to detect 3 in a row with the logic in a separate way in a logic board. And we are able to restart the game. Let's continue. Let's create the IA. Well, actually, let's first create like a dummy AA. It's gonna be something that just checks for the what is in the board. If it's picks a random number, if this position is already taken, for example, right now, if he chooses this position, if it's taken, just choose another until by randomness achieves one that is empty. Then it marks it. It's quite stupid, but it's a way to create a UI. So let's create a, well, let's just go here and create an onCreate. Let's just create, let's call it AI move generator. So it's the AI move generator. It's the class that is gonna generate the moves of the AI. Artificial intelligence move generator equals new AI move generator. Okay. So as well, we need the board, so he will know which positions are empty. So let's create the class. Yeah, board, and let's put it into a field. Alt Enter, create field, board, and it's assigning it. Okay. Okay, so as I said before, this is gonna be a really stupid AI. So let's not put much effort on it. Get move. It's just gonna say like if the board is full, it's not gonna return anything. So let's create this method actually. Board is full. So this method is actually just iterating through the marks. And if the mark is empty, then it will return false. And if all the marks are not empty, then returns true. Then it means it's full. Okay. Okay, so we can come back here. So if the board is full, we don't want to return anymore. And then we want in an infinite way until we find a number that suits up. We will pick a new random. This is a Java util class. Next int, so a number that is between 0 and 9, excluding the 9. Let's put this random into a field. Command Alt F, random. We will initialize it. Oh, sorry, in the field declaration. Okay. So if we need a method that it will tell us if the position that we want to mark is empty. If it's empty, we return the position. Let's call it move. So let's create this method in the board. Alt Enter. It's just checking we will return boolean, and so marks dot get with a position, yeah, move. If this is empty, then we know if it's empty. Okay, we come back to the other class. Okay, so this method is quite simple. It's just gonna check if the board is full, doesn't give us any movement, and if not, until it finds an empty space, there are empty spaces because it's not full, it will return the position of any of the empty, one of them. Okay, so let's come back to the activity, and let's use this generator. Let's make it a field, and now okay, so now when we are here, for example, this is every button is what we are doing when we are clicking on any button. So I will try to make it a bit more simpler because right now we have 2 players. So I'm gonna make a little refactor of this. So we are gonna make a method that is gonna be move player, and another that is gonna be move AI. So the player is gonna, okay, this is gonna be move player. Actually, this is not needed, so we are gonna mark the button. So this is gonna be a function in game activity. So it's gonna be mark button. So when we mark a button, we are gonna set its text to something. This something should be a player. Doesn't matter if it's the AI or not, or a player. And then we're gonna set clickable as false. And then we can as well change this as mark boards with the index of the, how to make it simpler. Yeah. Player, So let's put this into a position. So click it button position, and then the player symbol. So this is gonna be game activity mark board. Okay, so with Alt Command N, we can inline this variable. Okay, we have a problem here because when I change mark button, I added the player, so we need to put here the player. Okay. So now we can actually mark button, mark board. Now we need to check if there is a win. Let's refactor this as well. Let's make a method that it will check if there is a winner. So let's put player into a variable, player. If the player, if there is someone won, let's call this check win. Let's extract it to a method, Alt Command M, game activity. Let's call this check win. So we are gonna check if the player won in this method. I'm just doing kind of refactors because it's gonna be much easier later to see the logic. Okay. So we need a method as well to check if there is a tie. As well, if we win, we want to have, we will need a flag. That a flag is something that is used sometimes in programming that indicates that a condition happened. Since this is not an infinite loop as a game, we need some kind of condition to check that the game ended. So this is going to be a boolean. Let's call it game over. And let's initialize it as false. So by default, we didn't lose. So when we win as well, we will finish the game. So game over equals true. Now we need another way to check tie. If there is a tie, actually we don't need a player for the tie because that doesn't matter. And we create a method, it game activity, and the tie will just check if it's not game over, because if there is game over, there is no point of checking. And the board is full. There is only way. Then, if no one won, the game is not finished, and the board is full, it means that it was a tie. So then it means like the game is over because there was a tie, so no one needs to keep playing. And we can as well, game result TV, we can as well set the text as it's a tie. We can put this into string, alt enter, extract into resource, tie, enter. Okay. So now we have the player moving. So let's call we can do this mark button, mark board, player, check win, and check tie. This is actually the player moving. Let's extract it to a method. Move player, for example. And the click it button. Actually, instead of click it button, we can extract it before and pass only the int. So this, we can extract it here, and then we will put an int instead of a button. So int position. So here we can use the position, and here we need to find actually the positions. Get position. So this is actually, instead of position, we can call it player move. Oops. This is what the player clicked. I'm just trying to make it extracting the player from actually moving, so we can, it will be easier when we put the machine. So we can just inline this player here. Oops. We can put this player here, so we don't need this line. So it's gonna be use player. Move player is an index and a player. That's fine. Okay, and then we need to somehow move the AI. So we only move the AI if the game is still on. So if it's not game over, if game over didn't occur. If the game is still on, then we move the AI. And now you will see why I did all the refactor. If we create the method move AI in game activity again, move AI will be something very similar to move player. So first we need to actually get the move for the AI. integer move equals we have the move generator dot get move. Okay, so now actually it can return null, so we need to detect that a move is not null. Is not null. Then we will actually do something like this, but here it will be AI, artificial intelligence. As the board will be AI. Oops, mark the board. Actually, yeah, here we didn't extract the player, so let's pass the player. So now here we'll pass the player. So now we extracted the logic there. AI player. So we need to create this player. Let's go here. Let's create a new player that will be AI player. And it's gonna have the symbol 0. Oh. So let's extract this into a constant, Alt Command C. And then we create a constant. It's gonna be called AI symbol. Oh, cancel. No. Okay, so there are more O's. So let's start over. Yeah. And now we type AI symbol. Okay. So now that we have the AI player, we can set the AI move, AI player. Here, what is expecting? Let's get AI player. No, AI move, sorry. Here is AI move. And here is AI player. And here is AI player. So actually, we could kind of fusion this if it wasn't for this. But yeah, let's stop the refactor here because it's not just too much. Okay, so I think that might be all of it. Let's try. Right now, we should have an AI that should be a bit stupid, but it should work. Hopefully, we didn't break how we detect the finish of the game. We go to here, so okay, yeah, I won. Good. So okay, now there is something wrong. That when we start, we didn't set up game over as initialize the start button. Here, probably we need to set up that. Yeah, because if we start, yeah, game over should be false. Because if not, when we reach this condition, AI will not move again if we restart the game. Okay, so let's go over it. Again. Okay. You win, restart. AI is still, let's try to make it win. Yeah, no, you win. So when the AI wins, should put you lose. So when check win, here, actually, we need to somehow, yeah, put this string. We need to attach this string somehow to the player. So let's create into the players a string, private string. Let's call it winning text. So Alt Enter, add constructor parameter, then refactor, is added it here, and then we can create the getter. So we have a new variable with the winning text. So now when we create, for example, this is uwin, we remove this thing from here, Command X, and we put it in the player. And then here, we need to put you lose. And then we need to extract it to a string. Alt Enter, extract the string resource, lose. All right. Well, should work. What is there? So probably something not working with the automatic build or so. Maybe it needs some clean. Oh no, it's already. It was just slow. Well, anyways, let's clean the project. Here, we need to set the text from the player, player.getWinningText. So right now, when we check win from player, we give the winning text from the player. And when we check win from AI, we check from the AI, actually. Here we don't actually need this. So when we are moving player, we can just field player. Okay, let's go. And now if we lose, we should see the lose text. Okay. So did it launch? What happened? Yeah. It launched and it fails. Okay, so I probably forgot something. So this is a good chance to learn how to use the logcat. So logcat is the logs from the application. So we can see the stack trace of something. Here is everything that is happening in the actual form. So we need to ignore errors like this. So we need to go and try to find the errors. Let's select only error. Yeah. Resource ID not found. Game activity null pointer exception to context get resources on a null reference. Okay, this was happening in here. So you win and lose doesn't exist because I clean, and we need to actually build. Actually, if I click here, it should be maybe because I did this clean, I screw something. So maybe I need to clean again. Okay, this is still not working. So let's build the project. Lose has there, Juwin has there, Tai has there, is there, has something there. So I think it's something with the build. So let's try again. No, I think I might know what happens. It's because here we don't have access to get the strings. So we need to do the initialization of this actually inside the onCreate method instead of there. So here we cannot do the creation of the objects. So we need to do them in here. So this method getString only works when it's actually executing the activity. So let's try again. Now here should work. Yeah, so, okay. So let's make him win. Oh, he doesn't want to win. Okay. Fuck. Yeah. No, man. You win. Oh, fuck. Come on. Yeah, you lose. Okay, here we have it. We can as well tie. Fuck. Let's try to tie. It's impossible to tie against this guy. Yeah, it's a tie. So it's detecting a tie. So yeah, we actually have a tic-tac-toe working. It's just with a dumb AI. Okay, so let's wrap it up, going a little bit over the topics that we touched and the classes that we did. So the game activity is the activity that controls the flow and controls the whole game activity. So we only have one activity, and this is the activity that we are seeing. It has some method. The method onCreate is the method that is executed when the activity is created. And then we attach some actions to the buttons that we have in the screen, to those buttons, that is a grid and this button. In the actions, we are modifying something in the UI, and as well we are modifying something in the logic. We didn't have much time to actually make a good structure, make tests, and so on. But this is like a fast example of how you can build an Android app that then you can improve and model it your way. Yeah, we do some modifications in the UI, in the logic. We check logics. We put finishing conditions. We set some conditions, set some properties of the UI. For example, if the buttons are clickable. We did some classes that were just helpers to hold data in order to move between classes with easiness and more clarity. We created another class possible win that was just one way of solving this problem. I decided to do it with an array list instead of a two-dimensional arrays. So with two-dimensional arrays, maybe we would use two fors to check all these conditions, but I think this was simpler because we only have 8 possible conditions. So make the whole rest of the application simple. So apart from the code, we as well have the layout. We saw how to create a grid, how to use the constraint layout, that you need to set limits from the sides. You can put inside the grid layout something like buttons. We as well saw how to make styles. Styles, it was just a combination of properties that you extract when you want to have more than one element with the same properties. We saw how to use strings, this file that allows you to translate for translations. Yeah, mainly that's it. If you want to change, for example, the icon, you can go to here and change this icon. This is the actual icon here, the actual icon that you can see in the app. If you change those files, you will have a different icon. So this is the round version. So we go to round, and we see the round version. And if you want to learn more, you can just not only Android, but Java and backend, how to deploy in the cloud, how to make your webs, how to connect your webs with your Android applications, creating your API and connecting your API in a secure way to your Android applications, and so on. We have some courses. They are available in Coding Nomads. So you can just visit the webpage, check the available courses for the next month. For example, the next one is in Bali. So if you are interested in there, just go to the page, sign up, talk with Ryan and Kim, and thank you very much. Goodbye.